Welcome everybody. We are here with our special guest today, Pubzi.
Yeah.
Pubzi, how are you doing today, man?
Good, my man, yourself?
I'm awesome. So I know who you are. We've had a nice chat and we have some mutual friends. But for the people that hasn't yet met you, explain who you are and what your story is.
Yeah. Now my name is Mpumzi Makeleni. I am an economist, I am a scholar, I am a researcher and a lecturer at the University of the Western Cape. And the most important is that I'm an African, hey?
An African in South Africa.
Yeah.
But that must have been an amazing journey for you. How did you get into economics? What made you want to go into that field?
I actually only did economics at university. In high school, I studied maths and physics. I thought I wanted to be a scientist. However, I then changed and thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I applied for law when I went to universities because people said I could make a great lawyer.
Yeah.
And when I was at university, I actually found that law was boring. There was
That's how I feel about economics.
Yeah, there was a module called mercantile law. I didn't like the case laws and thinking about those things. And I, for the first time, also took economics or did economics. And I just fell in love with it. And then that's what I then continued with. Sparked my interest.
So I was also in UWC. I went in a different direction. So I studied accounting. When I did economics, because as an EMA student, you have to get the foundation. And I actually did it on high school. So I was economics, business and accounting. So I did economics from a young age. And from my understanding, economics is this whole explanation of how the world's resources are distributed and what motivates people to actually build a country up, build a society up, and how you could have government intervention to optimize that. Is that the correct understanding? What would you really say is economics?
You actually got it quite right. So firstly, economics is a social science. So it studies societies. It arises from the fact that people have unlimited wants, but resources are limited. And then
Scarcity,
yes. That scarcity then means that we cannot have everything that we want. And therefore that necessitates that we make choices. And when we make those choices between what we can have and what we cannot have, we then have opportunity costs, meaning there are some best alternatives to what we choose that we then forego, right? And then that therefore means that we have an issue with regards to the distribution of resources. So economics studies how best to distribute resources and ensure that they are used efficiently. So you actually coined it correctly. I just put some technical terms to it. Otherwise,
spice it up a bit.
Exactly what
for the academics out there. An academic way of saying.
Yes.
My understanding of economics is very little because I study accounting, but accounting and economics intertwines more in regards to, like we were discussing earlier, with the tax and how tax could be utilized to effectively motivate people to actually build the economy up better. And we were talking earlier and we were discussing how different countries have different tax rates and how you could motivate people to either work less or work more based on the tax rates out there. But there's no clear-cut answer on how things should really be done. What do you feel is missing in the field of economics today, and what does it really need to be explained or figured out so that we could go forward as a race and move the world forward in a good direction? Or do you feel that we already are on a proper trajectory?
Good question. I believe that firstly, economics is derived from a point of view. So you'll find that you have different types of economists. You have arguments and disagreements within the same school of thought, etc. And I think that is what is missing the most. What is missing is that we do not have economists who have a proper grounding in terms of economic development ideology, an ideology of moving people, growing the economy for the benefit of the people. But with regards to the one which you touched, that speaks about taxes and how or what best can be done, I believe that it always has to do with the domestic circumstances. If in one country they are endowed by good resource bases and they are able to beneficiate their resources sufficiently for the people, and there is less need of exorbitant taxes, and then that's what they can do. However, a problem that we have is that for the global south, which includes the most part of the developing world, the economies are extractive, meaning that the economies are based on the resources that are found in those countries being exploited by those who have means and who have always have had those means, which is how the capitalist West has been established. It cannot exist without extracting from our economy, and you find that there is no beneficiation within our economies. And the question you should then ask yourself is, who trains our policymakers? Who trains our economists? From what school of thought are they trained in? And you will find the answer there, because they are trained Western. They are trained in the Western ways of thinking.
But you said now that our economy is based on a Western ideology.
Not necessarily.
But just quickly where I want to go with this. So you know about when we had apartheid, right? So we were trained, I don't know the exact specifics about this, but there was a Russian training in South Africa, and they adopted this Russian way of revolting. That's what I heard, or my understanding of what happened. So South Africa is also in the direct relation with Russia, with China, who are these big communist countries, and they are the countries that basically runs communism. So what makes you think that South Africa is more capitalist than communist, based on who we are actually partners with?
So an extractive economy doesn't necessarily translate to a capitalist economy. The reason for that is because, for instance, now you've just spoken about the Chinese, with whom we are in a grouping. The Chinese can actually become the extractors of our resources as well, them being communists, but they can also establish an extractive economy in South Africa. As a matter of fact, we know of some places within the SADC region where the Chinese borrowed those countries huge amounts of monies which they knew that they could not pay back, and when they couldn't pay back, they then repossessed some of their ports and some of their infrastructure.
But that's amazing, because one thing that I also know is that China just lends money to everybody. Even America is indebted to China. That's what I've heard. Is that correct?
Yes, America is indebted to China, and beyond that, most of American products are produced in China, including Apple products. iPhones are produced in China.
Everything is in China. If you look at our clothing right now, it's probably made in China.
Yes.
So then
yes.
How is China not able to just be like, you know what, we own the world, you guys all need to listen to what I say, or I'm not going to give you anything anymore, because China is able to produce things for cheaper. They will take your hard labor and make it for a tenth of the cost. So China can exist on their own, I would say, but the rest of the world can't, for instance, go without China. So what's your all's perspective on that?
Well, in today's globalized society, it's quite difficult for any nation to exist by themselves. It's actually impossible. That's what Donald Trump thought he could do, and he actually messed up the American economy in the process of doing that, saying that jobs have left America to China, and he said he wants to get those jobs back. He didn't succeed. He was never going to succeed. Same as it is with the Chinese. But there are two things with the Chinese. The first is that they do not have an interest of having a hegemony over the world. They do not want to be world police, as America envisages. So that's the first one. But secondly, which most people do not know, China is actually the biggest economy in the world in terms of purchasing power parity. Meaning that if you do not look at the economy just based on the nominal values of the dollar and whatever currency,
so GDP.
You look at the purchasing power of the currency and what people can afford and the quality of life people can lead with what they have. China is the biggest economy in the world with regards to that.
America is the biggest in terms of GDP, right?
In terms of GDP, in nominal basis or GDP value, and that is, it's quite a long way to assess the quality of life.
So obviously, we with our commerce background understand that, but for the people, that maybe they studied arts, we always used to make fun of the art students back on UWC. How would you make it like simple for them?
All right, to make it simple, let's use a common example of what is currently happening. Currently, we have a very high unemployment rate in South Africa, and most South African graduates, underline that, graduates are struggling to find employment. And there has been some teaching certificates that are international to go and teach English in these Western countries or internationally, which people have been taking, and they have been moving internationally. We've seen that there's also been a wave of mental health issues amongst those who actually took those programs, etc., took opportunity of that. And much of them come from the fact that the money which they saw or which they were promised or which they've seen, which was quite high, was not factored, or they did not factor the standard of living,
the cost of living,
in those countries. And now when they are there and they are living, they find that they are actually living to work. When they thought that they were going to create wealth and all of that. That is not the reality. So what I explained by purchasing power parity is exactly that. The fact that you've got resources, and that much resources does not say much. We need to get to what can be purchased with what you have and what quality of life can it afford. Then that is the purchasing power parity.
It's your absolute versus your relative wealth.
Yes. So we are saying that in China, people do well, fare well with much less than in the Americas. So that is the point in the USA. Sorry, that is a point of or the difference between the two.
It's very interesting because I know there's a prediction that China will be even the biggest GDP in the next 10 years or so. Just the rate that they're growing. And even now you already said they're already in purchasing power and all these other factors. Where do you see the economics in the world? Because there's this famous book for the guy that actually started the whole communist movement. What's his name again?
I'm not sure.
So, Adam Smith did the whole capitalist, and then this other guy did the communist thing. I can't come with the Karl Marx. So he said, or his theory was that everybody would obviously be capitalist. That's the way the world was started, through, you know, bartering, and then capitalists grew out of the bartering system. But in his book, he explained that everybody would eventually determine that communist is actually the best theory, and it's just they have to find it out for themselves. Do you agree with that, or what do you think the future of the world looks like for the economies of the world?
All right, complex question, but let me address what I think the future in terms of the economy looks like. Firstly, we currently have what I would, or is termed, a unipolar world, whereby we have the International Monetary Fund, we have the World Bank, and we have other types of institutions who are all based in a Western ideology and who are dictating economic affairs, who are measuring standards of living, and who are dictating the direction of the economies. And what we are seeing now, as is that the time for the world to be unipolar has actually come to an end, and that is what we are refusing, or the world is refusing to accept. The West especially is refusing to accept, and this is what has been revealed by the Ukraine-Russia war, which is in all senses a proxy war of the West against Russia. So I think that in the future, the world economy will be multipolar, meaning we will have different bodies in different regions having power and hegemony over the economic affairs of those regions. Hence why the BRICS grouping becomes an important group within the conversation of a multipolar world, because for the first time it is offering an alternative to what is there. It is saying we cannot be dictated by these current international bodies. We can have alternatives if we do not want to be on the other side. So that is how I view the future world. I view it as multipolar, but it won't be easier to get there, because there is no economic power that allows itself to lose power without war.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid that we might have a war before we establish from ground zero.
Yeah, because I know that's where the dollar overtook after the Second World War.
Yes.
That's where the dollar became the world trading currency.
Yes.
At that time it was backed by gold, and now there's nothing really backing it. So they're looking for now an alternative, because as you said, the world is in cahoots and they're not happy with the way Westerners has been dictating things. So now Russia, China, South Africa, and all these countries are being like, okay, no, we are going to dictate the way things are. But there's this other saying that power corrupts, and now America, it's very difficult to say where things are going to go. But what do you predict with BRICS?
All right. Before I enter into the BRICS conversation, I feel that America is a very unnecessary country in the world. I don't think America should exist, should be as a country. America is the only country in the world that has ever used nuclear weapons on anyone. America is the only country in the world that has that much number of wars it has started unnecessarily in order to keep their economic hegemony. And even today, as we speak, America is involved in operations. They have a military base in Botswana. I don't know what they want in the SADC region. So to just begin, it's unnecessary. And I wish it would be extinct from this earth. It doesn't bring anything of value. That is my view. So with BRICS, I have some concerns. However, anything that takes us even a slight step further towards a multipolar world is welcome. My problem with BRICS is that the countries within the arrangement are not necessarily in BRICS for the same reasons. Some are in BRICS because they would want to access some of the markets within BRICS. Some are in BRICS because they would like to be shielded from some of the abuse they're experiencing from the Western institutions. And some countries are in BRICS because they want to show a middle finger to America, such as Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is rich, has no interest of anything within the BRICS to enrich anyone, but they are just saying to America, remember that you've got a petrodollar. We run the dollar through our oil, and if you think that you can dictate to us any terms of whatever trade, we can actually show you that we run you. So I have a lot. I don't think I would even have time to actually explain my views regarding BRICS.
It's probably just a power grab, but thank you so much for coming today, bro.
It's
like, I really appreciated you being here. I love the talk, and I hope to speak to you again soon. Thank you so much,
definitely.
Man.
Thanks, man.
Sip some, and you gon' get your dance on. Catch me, drowning in ambition now. Turning all these tables now. Burning all these bridges down. Catch me, damn. Catch me,